Greetings and salutations, Bravehearts, Urbanites, and Coach Mad Hatters. Welcome to the Serendipity Gateway of our 90-day journey by heart. And a grand phoenix rising to the presence of our mahogany wood ancestors, gods and goddesses of divine trifecta and interventions. We welcome you and ask that you travel alongside us to ignite and activate our clarity and creativity so that we may know the truth by the way that it feels, especially when it resonates with our highest good of uniqueness and wholehearted individuality. I thank you kindly for those enlisting to my love team and giving me the courage to provide the leveling up information needed through my tender transparencies and authentic expressions. Please keep me tuned into the frequencies of your heartbeat and intuitive rhythms. And please clue me into the realms of the bigger picture so that I may accurately interpret the 6 degrees of our stories, community closeness, affinity, affections, and divine timing. Thank you kindly, my inner core. I greatly appreciate your guiding presence. The CMHU Coaching Conclave is now in session. Ashe. It's a glorious day in the neighborhood. Many will look at today as merely being Halloween, which is cloaked in all sorts of historical myths and urban legends, as well as generational stories that have grown and matured over time, as well as the quilting of several cultural myths that have morphed into something entirely different to fit the modern day efforts of celebration and social interaction. I had the notion earlier today to just tap in very quickly regarding the history of Halloween. And mainly because I wanted to find out more, but I also wanted to see if I could give myself some personal insight regarding my Pluto being in the first house, or Pluto being in the first house. It's not my Pluto, but as well as the moon being in my first house. And some things that I discovered, not specifically about Halloween, but about myself with regards to Halloween, um, was quite alluring, to say the least. I used to I used to wonder why I loved all of Tim Burton's stuff. I love a Tim Burton film. Now I'm not into the gory, like bloodshed type of stuff, but I am into the Harry Potter. I am into the and so many like the fantastical. It's not necessarily magical, mystical. I was about to say it's not. It's nothing horrible about the elements that I seem to be tapping into. Um, Fantastical, yes. Mystical, yes. Magical, yes. Um, a bit on the dark side, all depending on who you're talking to. Yes. I love series like Stranger Things. I even love the series called Lucifer, and I know it will probably like have much of the Christendom will cringe about it because they just spooked out about things that they don't understand. Um, but it's interesting when you are able to look the so-called devil in the eye. It's quite interesting ordeal. Even with that being said, inside tarot, the devil is the devil card is associated with Capricorn. It's a Saturnine card. And so I used to wonder about certain things when it came to what society or what was historically jotted down or historically referred to when dealing with Saturn or when dealing with this so-called Satan or the devil or excuse me whatever else wanted to be name wanted whatever other names wanted to be associated with this entity that seemed to bring mayhem and destruction. And interestingly enough, um, Brother Bobby Hemmett, he broke it down. And as a matter of fact, I think there was this one particular lecture that is on occult lectures via YouTube. I believe also occultlectures.com. You can tap into it from there. But there's a series that Bobby Hemmett did on Satan alone by itself. That lecture opened my eyes to the understanding from the metaphysical side of it and how most of our so-called myths and urban legends and things that would be based in what modern day would call spookism is all about the rotation of energies. It's all about the attempts to personify that which is in the unseen. And so the winter, Capricorn season mainly, a little bit of Sagittarius season, and maybe a little bit of Aquarius and Pisces season. Those were considered the more harsher uh, timelines within the yearly calendar. And because it brought so much famine and it was really, really hard on people who did not have the ability to take advantage of certain harvest seasons and well, right now the other supporting evidence is not coming to mind, but those months were very harsh on folks that lived outside of tropical climate. And so certain stories begin to develop around the hardships during these months. The energy that surrounds Capricorn season is harsh. The mythological genres that associate, um, not necessarily associate, that attempt to depict this energy that engages the human psyche during these months was full of fear and full of uncertainty and full of death. Many folks would starve and freeze to death. And so they figured that the God responsible for such harshness had to be of evil. But even with researching and developing this and knowing this and understanding this, it didn't do much for me during the moments trying to reconcile my sun sign. Being a Capricorn is not an easy feat. It really isn't. And when you find yourself within side of a Saturnine nature and you are struck with the call to go deeper into relationship with self to understand why you're here, like you literally have to go down to the root chakra and dig for diamonds. You have to find out your worth, why you are here. When a Capricorn is struck with the call to pull up its existential values from out of the root of chaos, pure, raw, unruly chaos. Like Bobby Hemmett say, in the beginning there was only darkness. I mean, he didn't say that, but he taught on that summit quite a bit. He worked diligently to make sure those that were studying with him understood that there is a metaphysical flight to your scholarship when you understand that most of the myths were shrouded around the plights to understand energy, to understand how it influenced us, how it manipulated us, how it had the ability to surround us and contour certain situations and circumstances. I'm trying to remember who it is that I was listening to yesterday. Yes. Okay. So, Sabrina Monarch through monarchastrology.com. I am on her list. And so a new Magic of the Fierce podcast episode came. Uh, and I know I still have it bookmarked. So I'm just scrolling real quick so that I can give you the proper name of it without losing my train of thought, which it feels like it's about to escape me. But the latest episode, episode 33, with Mari Mosh, I believe I'm pronouncing correctly. If I'm not, please forgive me. Okay, so episode 33 is about curiosity, courtship, and harmonizing with our life path. And even though all of the episodes, I have yet to view an episode that it didn't resonate with me at least 75%. And that's saying something for me because I'm picky. It takes something grand to woo me. So that's saying something. But this particular episode was extraordinary. Like it was above the ordinary remarkable, if that's even a thing. Very, very interesting episode. Um, and you can connect to all the episodes through monarchastrology.com. And so Ari spoke about the amazing realm of self and how life interweaves with this thing called self. And so it got me to thinking about how I viewed me as a Capricorn. And with so much evil bound commentary around the devil card, the Capricorn zodiac, the Saturnine archetypal characteristics, I got on this this quest to find ways that would dispel some of this pile on and what it meant to me to be a Capricorn and how is it that I could uh, redeem the reputation and not necessarily redeem the reputation of the devil per se. Um, because religiosity got that on lock. You are not going to convince a religious person that the devil is actually energy personified. Like you just not going to do that. They really do believe in it in a literal sense, not realizing that it's truly a language and signs and symbols by which we, and I just say we as human beings, have morphed this being. And so now anything that doesn't feel good or anything that brings forth some type of hardship or tragedy is automatically deemed, oh, that's the devil. Oh, that's Satan. You better watch it out. Get behind me, Satan. Woo, woo, woo. Like, and it's just like, like, please, will we get to the point in existence where we too, and I say we as the mahogany tree people, black folk, aka black folk, where more of us will take seriously our own personal driven scholarship. It's something when you're the only one in the room that does not know the story, like does not know the adequate elementals of the story. It's even something when not only do are you the only one in the room that do not know the story, but the way you speak continues to confirm to everyone that you don't know the story. And trust me when I say I find myself in that position all the time because I am still learning. I am still digging deep to see if that which I am bumping into resonates. I am on this highly sensitive quest to find the truth by the way that it feels. Why? Because just as today, being Halloween, where the story has morphed over time, that's the way most of our uh, material, most of our source of information stands within that same, it's the same thing. It's the same thing happening with that. Because everything that we look up on the internet is not authentic. And of course, in critical thinking will tell you that. They tell you pick at least 3 or 4 sources and find the common denominator, find the silver lining within all of them, and that there is your realm of truth. That you ought to not wholeheartedly believe in the first thing you hear. And under certain circumstances, when we're talking about the rearrangement of history, some things are by design were were rewritten, totally burnt to never be seen again. All sorts of journals and ledgers and all sorts of things burnt to the ashes so that it could never be proven otherwise, leaving generations upon generations to eat, regardless of their research and development, bumping into information that is just simply not true. Where does that leave us in the 21st century? Especially for those of us that would consider self a scholar. Like, am I really truly learning the real true stuff? Because at the beginning, at the brink of this thing called Halloween, it was actually, it started out being a pagan religious day of celebration, which merely means that these particular folks were praying to the gods of nature versus the gods of man. Let's not get this shit fucked up, please. Like Bobby Hemmett say, let's not be funny with this shit. And so at the brink of uh what's old boy's name? Gosh, I can't think of his name. I just keep going to the place they named him, Constantinople. But Constantine, yeah. Oh boy, when he picked up Christianity and started slaughtering those that did not believe in it, and then the church became heavily involved where it decided that it wanted to begin to build societies around this, and everything else that didn't fall in line with that got burnt and slaughtered, literally erasing anything that predates this thing called Christianity. The land, the law, the law of the land by which I reside is is a Christian built society off the back of Catholicism. So trying to better understand Saturn, trying to better understand uh, this planet that has a hold on my characteristics, its archetypal values, no matter from what source I've read from, has a consistency that meets the characteristics of me. All of it, no, because it really depends on the perception by which this information is being given. But most often, it has some type of continuity to them. Trying to find out about Saturn is how I started on this tumble down the rabbit hole, if you will, trying to truly understand what was so evil about it. And I do honestly believe there's so much historical hoopla with how we view what's considered good and what's considered evil, and where most of it stemmed from. I don't think it's a far fetched for me to say that most of the fear that permeates and have been permeating for generations, this thing called fear, it's by design, designed fear. Fake news is all around fear driven tactics. Because if you fear it, you won't investigate it. You won't go near it. Most folks, which was me until roughly about 4 years ago, intently studying the astrological values of what's considered good and what's considered evil, and where religiosity has played its part in that. So I went earlier today trying to satisfy the curiosity of Halloween's history, the inception of it, and how it all came to be. And what I'm finding out is that Halloween per se is really a American and a Canadian thing. And even with my mention of the Day of the Dead in yesterday's installment, found out more about it as well, with it being really part of the Mexican tradition, which was heavily infused by the Catholic Church. But even so, it was them honoring their dead, honoring their loved ones, honoring their ancestors, and finding this day to be the day closest to by which they could commune with them. And all depending on who's telling the story. Just like Krampus. Like, I needed to find out the baseline spookism with Krampus and how it is that, and we're not talking about Satan worshiping. And even if we were, do we really know what that is? Do we really know this personification of what the mainstream considers Satan? I say no. From all of the hoopla of the modern day, I say no. Halloween came morphed out of the efforts for the church to slowly infuse its way upon the people. And so they could not, back in those days, right outly say, you are not to believe in this, that, or third. You are not to worship the nature gods anymore. You are to worship the personified man we call Jesus. Or, well, I'm not going to get into all of the similarities in each religious genre, but I'll just stick with that one, seeing is that I was more or less raised inside of the Jesus story. And I pause because I'm wondering if I'm going to tap into all that beholds it, because it's going to take more than just one segment to really like unpack that. Mm, I don't think that's what I'm gonna do in this segment. I may I may I may do a separate segment just on that and what I've discovered um, throughout my quest to better understand Saturn, to better understand what those who had been telling and upholding the mainstream perception of what's good and what's evil. Winter is a very harsh season for those that live and dwell in wintry climates. And so the turning from fall to winter, also known, aka known as the harvest season, was an indication that the dreadful season was upon us. And I say us, speaking from the now treading into the American mindset and how some of our celebratory moments within the calendar year are engaged. Because it amazed me how I participated in certain holidays and really did not question why I was participating in them, or what they were for, or the origination of said holidays, what they were actually for. Because there are very specific American holidays that are not celebrated nowhere else on the globe. And most of those had been a transmutation from those that began to migrate here. So, Halloween, as far as its origins, is a mixture of Anglo and Celtic folklore, even all the way down to the uh, the um, the activities of trick or treating, or even the carving of pumpkins. So the deal with trick or treating was that the children, the children would um, dress up and go to the homes that the church had established, had beings that were so called cursed or in some sort of purgatory. And so the children would knock on the doors and they would be dressed in semi spooky, because back then they were really just masks that showed some type of unhappy expression. And so the children would knock on the doors of those that were in purgatory and tell them that to drop a treat in the bag would redeem them somehow of their state in purgatory. That after they dropped the treat into the kid's bag, that they were somehow redeemed of the realm of punishment that bestowed upon them. But yet and still, this is still all in a belief that is steeped in religiosity. Nothing to do with spookism in, I mean, or I love that word, but nothing to do with the horror itself. A mechanism used merely in fear-based tactic. So within these beliefs came the offspring of certain rituals that folks felt they needed to do to redeem themselves out of purgatory. Even the acts of trick-or-treating has morphed into something else. Um, Mainly the originations being upon the Irish, Scottish lands and various bubbles in and out of Europe, where the children became rowdy. And so, in order to deal with that on a societal level, they bribed them with candy, because the children became rowdy where they were tearing up the neighborhoods. They was fucking up shit. And they decided to give them candy. And I know I'm kind of rambling all over the place because I'm still toggling in my mind if I'm actually going to lay it all out, but I'm not. So, all of that to say that the the morphology around all that spooks us when dealing with this particular day has had us as a people tap into what's merely make believe, That's what it is. It's merely make believe. It has nothing to do with anything else but pure make believe. And I believe I've mentioned this before in another recording or maybe two about how it is that when I hear a story, I like to now understand the origination of the story. Who is it that's telling the story? And seeing as that most of the stories that we abide our lives by these days are told by the victor, hardly ever do we get down to the bare bones of when it morphed into this. Who is it that was telling the story? Because, in my personal opinion, what is now considered evil inside the mainstream has a lot to do with those that have attempted to tap into certain powers that were not deemed for them, and it turned on them. It turned out to be something of a very traumatic experience because those certain powers that are considered dark powers were never meant for those that were tapping into it. And so it ricocheted, it boomeranged, it backfired, and then it was deemed evil. But those that those particular powers were meant for, it does not ricochet, it does not backfire, thus it not be evil. One man's God is another man's devil. One man's devil is another man's God. So when we tap into the understanding, the understanding, the overstanding of who Satan really is or what this evil thing really is, it's it's powerful entities that dealt with the initiator who did not have the proper rites of passage to be engaging that, this, and a third. And seeing as that the powers that be did not have proper rites of passage to be tapping into certain things. When they did and it backfired, then the word on the street became that this is dark, that this is evil, and that it will ultimately corrupt. But I often say, and I know this is like a very simplified version of it, but I often say that the few times that I have caught myself in having to speak to the ex of a new beau, how she would make it her business to say how ornery the dude is, or how he's going to cheat on me, or he's going to treat me this way and that way. And I often say, he's not going to treat me the way he treats you. And that's not saying that his character is not going to reveal certain things that rightfully so are not to your liking. But seeing as that me and you are two different people, his actions might not have blended with yours and deemed you, all sorts of catastrophe. On the flip side, dealing with me could be very complimentary because we are two different people. I easily exchange that for when certain folks decide that they want to engage with certain powers that they do not have the natural rites of passage to be engaging. Thus, we get the stories of certain evil, dark powers that all should not be entertaining. The powers of my people are considered dark. The ultimate question is considered dark by whom? Because if it backfired on you, then that's just an indication that you had no business dealing with it. Mainstream hoopla is a very tricky device. Very tricky device. The myth surrounding Halloween is all twined up in all of that. And I'll leave that there. Um, we are still tapping into the new moon in Scorpio. And inside of the Tarot Treasure Trove, Scorpio is the Death card. Wanting to find out more about Pluto being in my first house, what that intrinsically meant to me and who I am. And even with the recording of this segment, it has taken me all day to record it because I toggle between the likability of it all. Standing in my freedom to face off with that which mainstream will call my shadow self. The trendy vocabulary that is swarming us today is still all based around one's energetic body, one's aura, and the infusions of such. Bad does not mean wrong. Because you don't like it does not make it negative. I really do think that the realm of negativity truly is based upon the perceiver. Just like beauty is of the beholder. What I may think is beautiful, you may not. I often wonder about the evolution of Tim Burton, like him being able to stand in his truth and display that which was not overly acceptable. And how he dealt with certain dismissals when standing in his truth, having to combat certain things that just was not substantial. So now we will officially cross over to the pyramid card layout that I pulled out yesterday. So it's a pyramid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. The bottom layer being 5 cards, the next layer being 4 cards, the next layer being 3 cards, next layer 2 cards, and the final card at the crown of the spread. Reading from left to right. So the cornerstone card is the exact card that was in the spread outlined 2 days ago in the installment for days 21 through 46. It's the same exact card, which indicated to me that I must continue to reiterate the encouragement that one ought to find its artistic self and court it, engage it, take it out on a date. The physical world would love for us to continue to neglect the invisible connectivities that we have when we are engaging others. Hardly ever in history's ledger is it popular. I want to say, maybe like in the recent, in the maybe in the recent 10 years, has the pendulum been slowly swinging back to the right brain hemisphere and all of the things that deal with one's intuition and giving honor to that which is the inner voice. To follow that instead of what is being trended. And even with that being so, it's still a hard habit to break. We love the news. We love going to tap into these news feeds that most of us know is hoopla. So the first card out is AMC VPT Challenge. Seek out the course of action that leads to a new level of art, music, craft, vocation, poetic justice, and tarot treasure trove. The next card out is a quote by Common, the lyricist Common, where he says, "Having my actions obey my thoughts." And so this card invites us to tap into that. The only way our actions are going to obey our thoughts is when we give true focus and attention to that which we think, to become aware of our thoughts, and to begin to actively engage in the reconciliation of certain thoughts. The next card out is the research and development card, which says to give attention to your two most favorite colors. There's power within colors. To research and develop your favorite colors as a way of therapy, as a way of inner healing, where you will pull, um, how can I say this? You will pull your two favorite colors. So you'll find items that you can physically hold, where you can physically see that particular color and dwell on it, meditate on it. Its powers are activating. And by finding out the powers that are associated with certain colors within the spectrum, will provide one with a self-based scholarship that can be easily transmuted into tools and tactics on how to calm, reconcile, motivate, appreciate. Before I even knew that this was a thing, my two favorite colors, any shade of green, as well as brown, as well as tans and khakis. Those are my two major colors. It doesn't strike me odd that green would be upon my favorite colors, seeing is that I have to utilize it quite a bit. It is adjacent to the heart chakra, and with being a Capricorn sun, you do have to focus quite a bit, intently focus on the decluttering of your heart, the reconciliation of your heart, the fine tuning of your heartstrings. And so the card invites us to journal all the keynotes that depict one's personality and emotionality when engaging your two favorite colors. The next card out is to contemplate and journal the trio considered the moon, the sun, and the world card within traditional tarot. Journal all that resonates. Last card on the base of the spread is the pro personal inner consultation prescription to go dancing. And you can even dance in your seat. Just go and dance. Turn on the music that you know will make you want to jump, make you want to vibe, and vibe out. Put some movement in them joints and allow the music to move you. And the card invites us to increase the frequency more and more over a 9-week stretch. And then journal all that is involved in those experiences. I had a horoscope in July. I think it was it was at the brink of the last week of July. And it was interesting because within that horoscope, it said follow the music. Wasn't really sure what that meant at the time, but because I am a music buff, it wasn't hard to figure out how I was going to adhere to the suggestion. But something striking happened the week following that as I succinctly embraced that, because that, even though I read the entire horoscope, that small portion of the horoscope constantly kept popping back up. Follow the music, follow the music, follow the music. So one of my twin brothers is a careered professional DJ, and he's been uh, in the DJing realm, shucks, I want to say at least 25 years. More, because my oldest is 28, and it was way before. Yeah, because I was still in high school. So I want to say like the mid 80s is when, early 80s. Wow. So yes, like the early 80s is when he hit the scene, and he's still running strong. When I say running strong, in high demand, he rocks the crowd. So my stepmom, my dad, and their crew was giving, no, they were co-hosts. They weren't the actual host of the cabaret, but they were in conjunction with it. And so they've been doing it for years. And this was the first one that I decided to go to. And of course, my brother was the DJ of the cabaret. And it's amazing because I was actually not going to go, and then it popped up in my head, follow the music. So I'm like, is that what this means? And so I went and had a miraculous time. A miraculous time. Stayed on the dance floor, had a wonderful dance with a stranger. Incredible. I love it when I can, yeah. That's a whole different set of love language when you can find someone that'll dance with you, that will be in incredible synchronicity with you. Yeah, it's a very humbling but exciting moment to behold. After that, levels of stress just started to untangle, unravel, just release itself from all that was plaguing me at that time. So yeah, go dancing. Go dancing. So the next card is also within the research and development banner, and it's of three questions. First question, why am I here? Second question, what did I come to this realm to do? Third question, what did I want to do when I was a youngster? Contemplating these three questions solidified my path through my self bound research and development. It allowed me to refocus the trajectory by which I consider my life path and what it is that I came here to do and why. Next card out is the Pro Personal Study under the Pro Personal Study banner, which is of the Major Arcana in Tarot, the Magician. Meditate upon any intellectual, creative, and light forced. Meditate upon any intellectual, creative, and light based forces within your current affairs. And light based forces can come in the realm of intuition, inspiration, motivation, clarity, reconciliation, calm, solitude, quietude. Next card out is under the journal fitting banner. Inside the specialty of songversation originates from the songstress India Ari. She speaks a lot about how songs will hold a conversation with us, and that there are all sorts of immaculate invitations that dwell within songs that will have us understand things on a better level. And so this card invites us to listen and ponder to the song called Mirror by Layla Hathaway, and to journal the keynotes involving the impact of listening to said song. This particular song is so Scorpio, so Scorpio. It is, it's really Scorpio. Definitely for those that are in the midst of a death and rebirth, a death of old self, rebirth of new self, the phoenix rising from its ashes. You must be able to embrace the metaphor of the mirror, because to not know oneself is to be lost forever. And when we can look at those parts of ourselves that are not so welcoming or not so popular, not so acceptable, and then having the courage to either embrace it or continue to shun it like everyone else are those moments in the mirror. Because to have someone metaphorically look at themselves in the mirror, and I say metaphorically because it's not about what you see on the physical realm when we are reconciling self or affirming self. In my opinion, remember, I'm speaking to Coach Mad Hatters, I'm speaking to Bravehearts, I'm speaking to Urbanites. Most often, those that identify with what I just those that I the archetypes that I've just named are not really intrigued by the fanfare, by the Vanity Fair. Now that's not to say folks don't care about how they look on the outside, but they are more concerned about how they feel on the inside. They are more concerned with the cultivation of their inner being and how that transmute outwardly versus how they look on the outside. This new moon is allotting us a quality of energy to help us usher in the newness of self, to give us the courage to embrace that which we've always wanted to connect with, to step out there and take the photos that will build the portfolio that will deem you a photographer, to go and sit in the park and sketch out a couple of drafts that will somehow serve as the seeds to a, a showcasing, or to tap into and try out a few of those entrees that will be part of a menu that will solidify you as a community chef, to write out that song, to draft out that poem, try out some new hairstyles that will propel you into another scene as a stylist or a barber, to go to open mic, to start the YouTube channel, to teach the class, to facilitate the workshop, to sit as the confidant, to speak as the counselor, without needing to be deemed that by society, merely because your inner voice says, I want to see what that's like. I would like for us to engage in that. Ultimately, having the experience make you new. You will instantly be a new creature by the experience alone, just because you had not had the, what I like to call the intuitive detail beforehand. You had to experience it in order for your awareness to be infused in some way. Which perfectly segues into the next card, which is under the Pro Personal Inner Consultation banner. Tracking the court of public opinion. Your reputation per your crew, your family, and your top 5 friends at work. And the card invites us to track it for 3 to 6 weeks and journal all keynotes. When this particular card was being developed, I struggled with it, mainly because for so long I refused to care about what anyone had to say about me. And then came the notion that there are those that take pride in whispering and lurking in the shadows. They are the co conspirators of the rumor mill, and they take great pleasure in infiltration and sabotage. And to this day, I still have not come to a conclusion that suits my satisfaction as to why this would be so. But I've seen it go down. Hairstylist of 20 years, I've seen it go down many, many times. All depending on the situation and the people involved. Sometimes I would step in, sometimes I would not. Now, within my real close inner circles, I will stop it in its tracks. Where it's like, no, that's not how we're going to have this conversation. Now, we can have the conversation while the person is in front of us or not have the conversation at all. Because I've been in the Hall of Fame of the rumor mill. Even to the point where it come back to me and it's like, how in the world did you figure that? Where did that come from? No, that is not true. Absolutely no. Ridiculous is what that is. And then to have to be dealing with the aftermath of that conversation, being bummed out like, that's what you were really thinking about me all this time. Thanks to this conversation, we were able to get that shit cleared up. But when you really think about it, you won't be able to have those type of conversations with the masses. So I really wondered about this card and how it is that we can control the court of public opinion. And the more and more I think about it, it's like we really can't. And I give you that tidbit in honest transparency where all of the cards that are being um, entered into our first card deck to be commissioned are not all to my liking. Some of them that have come through, I had struggled with them like, what? Why in the world would that be on a card? This is one of them. Because I'm figuring that at some point, especially all depending on what one's particular life path is, to track it or contemplate it. I don't know. I probably could spend another 15 minutes going back and forth um, with just trying to make it make sense to me of how one would do that. Because even when you ask folks, to tell them how they feel about you or give you some type of feedback, I've only met a few, yeah, like just a handful of those that could truly have a conversation with you and say, okay, this is what's being said, or this is what I was believing, and then be true enough to say, and this is where I got it from. Most folks will just go quiet on you, or they'll act like they don't know what it is that you're asking them. And I don't even know where that came from, but it exists. So we're going to move on to the next card. And so now we are on the third level of the pyramid. And the first card is under the research and development banner to investigate 2 to 3 herbs. Keynote all that you discover. and to study for a full 3 weeks, which is 21 days, about the 3 herbs, the 2 to 3 herbs that you find out about. This is not to go and review herbs that you've already been studying. And as I've mentioned several times before, this realm is full of variety. So you could be studying new herbs every month for a good 12 to 24 months, quite honestly. As I like to um, encourage, start a journal, especially if you're trying to be about that plant life. If you're trying to find more creative ways to eat and heal and just ultimately change the trajectory of how your body functions on a daily basis, it would do you some good. It'll actually be a favor to find out more about certain herbs, find out how to begin a a kitchen garden. And a kitchen garden is herbs that truly grow on a countertop. You can place a small lamp, dedicate a small corner of the counter, and begin to grow because herbs can grow in small quantities. So you can get countertop cedar boxes, very, very compact, very efficient, and begin to grow certain herbs that can flourish indoors. And you clip from the herbs as you need them. Fresh herbs inside of dishes truly gives a different experience. Next card out, one of my favorites. It's of the Literatur's Legend and Love Letters series, which is to investigate the term temetnos, which means to know thyself. The most popular instance uh, with using the word is when Neo went to see the oracle, and the plaque that was over her door, she pointed to it and asked him if he knew what it meant. And she followed up to let him know that she could not deem him the one. He had to deem himself the one. And the only way he could do that is by knowing himself. Now, she did not tell him what it is that he needed to do to know himself, but she definitely told him that was the prerequisite to being the one. You have to know. Next card out is under the Research and Development banner, and it is of a Coach Mad Hatter specialty. And we are to seek out our intra-personal light, which means all of the good things that you do when you are engaging with self. Whatever that may mean to you, do more of it. And yes, it'll probably be a challenge in this ultra positive, ultra social, heightened era because I am bumping into so many that figure that they can't do anything by themselves. They always have to be in a group, they always have to be engaged with another human in some shape, form, or fashion in order to be satisfied. I beg to differ. I often think the shadow sides of ourselves become unruly because at some point they get tired of always having to divide the time and attention with other humans, where it's more warranted to seek the companionship of thyself. to have conversations with thyself, to listen to the inner voice and actually adhere to the provocations that are coming from within. Seek that. Seek your intrapersonal light. And when dealing with personal relations, you are relating to yourself and then you are relating to others. Tap into, build, make strong the relations of self. Next level up. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, so we are now at the last three cards of the pyramid. And so the next card is the pro personal, is of the pro personal feel good, under the pro personal feel good banner. And it says, give a gift of a master's level journal to someone special and to savor the moment. To know that you have a journal writer amongst you, and not gift them with at least one very nice journal, in my opinion, is a tragedy. Journal writers love journals, and there are some very exquisite, beautiful, intriguing, motivating journals out there, that will just tickle the fancy of the journal writers amongst you. So next to the last card, which is also a card that came out in yesterday's, what I like to now call the infamous five, and it's under the Pro Personal Inner Consultation banner, and it's of affirmation. I release myself from, oh, you know what? Sorry, I misspoke. No, yesterday's it was the invitation to discover something. Okay, okay, so strike that. Brand new card. I release myself from blank. And so you will write in the blank what it is that you are going to release yourself from. And it says journal keynotes involving progress, which means it's first to acknowledge, but then you have to gain the patience to watch it unravel, bear witness to the unraveling of whatever it is that you are releasing yourself from. It may take time. And with it not happen instantaneously, refrain from judging it a failure. As long as you do not release the notion, you're going to release the whatever it is that you want to release, but do not release the dedication to releasing it. As long as you don't release the dedication to releasing it, it will release. Being a human, we are not in charge of the outcome. We are not in charge of the timing, and we are not in charge of the mainly the timing and the outcome. Let's just leave it there. Let's keep it simple for right now. Because I am pulling through my energy. I am in a I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. That's the type of energy I'm in right now. And so the the last card crowning the spread, one of my most favorites, It's investigating the fairy realm, increase engagement and imaginary, what's it say? Increase engagement and imaginary evolve and resolve. Journal all inquiries to the realm. Ask for insight and real communication. Real communication meaning that they make it known to you that they are responding to your inquiry. And it will come in, it could come in various forms and fashions, which means it could be coming in signs, which could be like a message off of a billboard. I've had that happen. It's very incredible to experience that. Or it could be dropped in a conversation that you're not involved in, like those type of things. Like you'll know that it is in response to your inquiry. One, you are not going to speak about it to other humans. So it's going to be between you and the unseen, and you are going to put out that inquiry and you're going to specifically bound it to the fairy realm so that they may bring you back answers. I will say this, especially since it crowns this spread. Think about the eye of the pyramid, which is another thing that I am intently investigating to understand the baselines between um, the powers of the eye of the pyramid. But with this being the crown of the spread, it is to be duly noted, significantly noted, sternly noted that if you approach this in disbelief, it's not going to work. It's not, the fairies will not engage ones that do not believe in them. So I have to say in honest transparency that if you are one who do not believe in the magic of the fairy realm, then the eye of this particular pyramid spread is not for you. If you are looking to accumulate and solidify, fortify your scholarship in this, meaning that you are a novice of such activities, but you are engaging in the recontouring of your beliefs because what you believed prior to this moment has died with your old self, and your new self has now taken up the cause to understanding the metaphysical, understanding the mystical worlds, understanding the connectivity inside the unseen, knowing that you are now strengthening your inner self to a new vocabulary. Then, as you begin to engage, um, it's just coming to me now to tell you that patience truly will be your virtue. And let me just say this before we end. Um, I am still baffled by how much of life I lived unaware of the invisible activity that goes on in and around me. And I'm just one human being, as well as the notion that I am of celestial value and that part of me decided to be encased, to be embodied in flesh, so that I may engage this realm to bear witness to whatever it is that I situated in the 5D to live out in the 3D. Hardships and challenges and traumas included. I'm gonna um I'm gonna close out this segment with a quote. As a matter of fact, we're gonna make it two. Well, one's a book passage and one is a quote. Okay, so let me find my. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to share the quote first, and it is the quote of the week that's inside of my 2019 uh, planner, opening up the month of November. And it says, talent is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift to God. Of course, God can be interchanged however, make it fit. Come on, it's customizable. Make it fit to resonate. And so when I read that, it made me think about, and making me think about now even further, that as a celestial being, aka God in God form, I set up as if I was making an avatar of all the gifts and talents and all that goes within the making of me. That I situated all of that while I was in celestial form, and that when I came into embodiment into this realm, what I do with that will be a gift back to my celestial form when I release from out of the 3D, from out of this realm. Which seems to do very well with regards to full circling this as we close out, as we are in the influence of Scorpio and Pluto, and how it is that we must begin to honor the death of our various selves, or the death of a chapter, or a cycle, or a phase or series of situations with people, places, and things. And I'll leave you with this, which comes from out of the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And I've read this several times in other recordings. I like to call it Exhibit A. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the door or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at best knows the end, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. And that is taken from a Theodore Roosevelt speech called The Citizenship in a Republic, April 23rd, 1910. So, yeah, um, you may, if you're interested, uh, replay this and take your notes. Um, I'm hoping that at least one or two cards within the spread will resonate, where it will provoke you to go and explore more and become in tuned, or better in tuned, with thyself. Because Neo, you are the one. And I know it will not mean much hearing it from me. You must say it. You must believe it. You must own it. But trust and believe me when I tell you, you are the one So go dancing. Go buy that journal for someone special. Ask your questions to yourself about why you're here and what did you come here for. And deem yourself as the magician. Begin meditating on your intellectual and creativity and how you can infuse and spruce it up a little bit more. And if you want, yeah, track the court of your public opinion and figure out what's going on within the rumor mill as it's in conjunction with your reputation. So thanks for joining me. Thank you so, so much for joining me. And I wish you well.